People are getting tested, which is great to see. So over 4,000 people have been tested in the past 24 hours. So we want to keep that great record in Queensland. And if you have any symptoms, please go and get tested. Well, we just wanted to update everyone today in relation to the border closures, and I'll hand over to the Deputy Commissioner to talk a bit more in detail about that. But what we are seeing is people are breaching and are being turned around. So there will be a hard border closure that will be going in place. People will start to see barricades going up again this afternoon, and by 6 a.m. tomorrow it'll be back to the strong border measures that we have seen in Queensland that have kept Queenslanders safe. This is really important, everyone. We want people to do the right thing, so people will be turned around. But I do want to thank the Police Commissioner, the Deputy Commissioner briefed me just previously, and that's why we've taken this swift action today, because unfortunately people are doing the wrong thing and we can't risk it. The other message I wanted to give today too was just in relation to if anyone has travelled to Queensland from the Northern Beaches from the 11th of December, I'm asking you to please go and get a COVID test. We are concerned that there are people from the Northern Beaches who have travelled right around Australia. We believe that there are people here in Queensland. So what I'm saying to accommodation providers is you'll have a list and a register about who is staying in your premises. If they have come from the Northern Beaches, please put something under their door or talk to them about going and getting a COVID test. Likewise, if you have friends or family who have come to Queensland, we are asking them to also remind them to go and get a COVID test as well. We just want to do everything we possibly can to make sure that we do not get any community transmission here in Queensland. I want to thank everyone for doing the right thing. I know this is a very difficult time, and of course, being closed to Greater Sydney and the Northern Beaches, we do want to welcome those tourists back here to Queensland, down the track. We do love you, but at the moment, if you can appreciate, it is a very hard and very difficult decisions that we're making, but we are making these decisions in the best interests of keeping Queenslanders safe. We also have a lot of visitors here at the moment as well, and we want everyone to be safe. So the Health Minister will talk a little bit more about the QR codes and the compliance there. But I want to hand over quickly to Dr Young. She's got to go to an AHPPC meeting, so we'll get her to do her briefing and any questions to Dr Young, and then the Deputy Commissioner will update everyone about the hard border closure that will be going into effect. Thank you, Dr Young.
So we have that one new case in Queensland, someone in hotel quarantine. Now we've had one case associated with this growing cluster in the Northern Beaches who was here on the 16th and 17th of December. And please, anyone who was in the Glen Hotel on the 16th of December, could you please come forward and get tested? 560 people have so far, but we're not sure that everyone has come forward. That is critical. It's critical for you as an individual, but it's also critical for your family members and for the community. That's very important. Similarly, anyone who is in Queensland today who was in the Northern Beaches on the 11th of December or subsequent to that, it is really important that you also come forward and immediately make yourself known and get tested. That's critical. And I do thank all those people who have come forward. We are seeing very long queues at some of our testing facilities. If that happens, just go online and see where there are other facilities, because we have stood up a lot throughout the state. It is really important that anyone in Queensland with any symptoms immediately comes forward and gets tested. Don't think it's a sniffle or a cold. It could easily be COVID. That's unfortunate, but true. We have to go back to all of those processes we had in place earlier in the pandemic that stood Queensland so well. We've got through this before. I'm positive we'll get through it again because people know what to do. Now's the time to go and put all of that back in place. And please, whenever you go anywhere and they need you to give your details, could you please make sure you give them? So we're introducing that mandatory QR code or electronic process, but it's just so important. Please give accurate details. It's so easy to get one number wrong in a mobile phone number. Just make sure it's correct, because that means we can very, very quickly get hold of everyone who's been in that facility. We won't be still trying to get people 5 days later as we are with the Glen Hotel. So make sure you give your information when you're out and about so we can immediately get hold of you. Now, happy to take any questions.
Over the weekend you mentioned those positive sewage test results.
Yes.
How soon, we've got 4,000 people tested overnight. I'm sure you'd like to see more people tested to be sure that there isn't undetected active COVID. What kind of testing levels are you hoping for, and what sort of time frame do you think before we see positive tests if there is undetected COVID in those locations?
There's a lot of questions and a lot of hypotheticals there. Right, sewage testing just gives us an idea. It doesn't give us absolutes. So it says that there is virus detected in that sewage area. We don't know whether that's fresh virus, a new case, or a case that's still developing, or whether it's an old case that's still shedding. My concern is that we've not seen 4 areas simultaneously test positive like that before, and we do know that there are people who've previously been in the northern beaches that are in those areas. That's why they're concerning. But we can't link the two exactly. It just alerts us that those areas were negative and now they're positive. So something's happened. So really it's about anyone in those areas coming forward if they've got any symptoms, or anyone who's been in the northern beaches 11th of December onwards comes forward and gets tested. So there's not a direct link, but it is saying there's potentially a problem.
You mentioned those long testing lines today. We've seen them pretty much throughout the southeast. Previously, we've ramped up the capability with pop-up clinics and those drive-through clinics.
Yes.
Is that happening?
Yes. Yes, that's all happening now. The opening hours are being extended. They're getting more staff in. They're ramping up other clinics. All of that's happening, yes.
What conditions would need to be met to reopen, do you think?
We'd have to have those 28 days of no unlinked case. So the good news at this point in time is all of the cases that New South Wales has announced, so they announced up to 83 this morning, have been linked back to that first event that happened in those 2 areas, those 2 venues, on the 11th of December. So at the moment they're all linked back.
Can I clarify just one thing? So that anyone who's been to the northern beaches, who's already in Queensland since Friday the 11th, they're being urged to go and get a test, self-isolate for 2 weeks?
It depends on the date they came in. So anyone who's having a test needs to isolate till they get the result. Now, some of those people might already be in quarantine because of the dates they travelled into Queensland. They then have to stay for the 14 days.
And then anybody who's travelling back to Queensland since 1 a.m. last night and 1 a.m. tonight, who've been in the Greater Sydney region, they also need to get a test and self-isolate for 14 days since being in that area.
They're Queenslanders who came into Queensland from 1 a.m. this morning. They have until 1 a.m. tomorrow morning to be able to do their quarantine at home, if their home is suitable, of course. After that, it doesn't matter whether you're a Queenslander or a non-Queenslander, you will have to go into hotel quarantine. Having said that, if you're not a Queenslander, you'll need an exemption to come into the state.
So we've had questions from people who've returned prior to 1 a.m. last night, who've also been in Greater Sydney. Their advice that they were given was to go and get a test, but then they only needed to self-isolate until the test was negative.
That's correct.
So
yes.
1 a.m. was the cut-off for
yes.
a 2-week quarantine?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Well, 2 weeks from when they left Greater Sydney. So if they went from Greater Sydney to the northern coast of New South Wales for a week for a holiday and then came up, they only have to go into home quarantine for a week. So they're being given orders, so they were told that they needed to go and get an order, and that would tell them how long.
But if someone returned from Greater
correct.
Yesterday, I think there were 15 close contacts in Queensland and New South Wales cases. Has that number been updated?
Yes, so there have been 27 close contacts that New South Wales have let us know about. One of them was that individual, of course, that we found here and has gone home. So that leaves 26 who are still in the state. All 26 are in quarantine. Some of them are in hotel quarantine, some of them are in home quarantine, and 20 of them so far have been tested and had a negative result.
Will the requirement for that digital check-in platform for businesses be written into a new health order?
Yes, it will.
And so that'll be from
Wednesday. Yes.
So the Health Minister will talk about that in a moment. We might let Dr Young go to AHPPC if that's okay. I'll hand over to the Deputy Commissioner. Thank you, Dr Young.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Premier. So if I could just start with giving you some idea of the magnitude of the task we have at hand. Since Friday, when we brought back the border declaration passes, we've had 237,500 of those applied for, which gives you the indication of how many people want to come into the state from New South Wales. And since Friday, we've put over 500 people into quarantine. Just today, we've seen 6 flights come out of Sydney into Brisbane until just before lunchtime, and 166 of those persons had to be placed into quarantine. So we're seeing fairly significant numbers of people still coming into the state. The domestic borders, the domestic airports are working quite well because we're doing 100% meeting of all of the flights coming out of Sydney, so we're processing that quite well. Where we have concerns is at our road borders. And I'm briefed that even today with not hard closures but with checkpoints that we're seeing delays of up to 75 minutes and the traffic is very heavy. Also during the period we've been doing random intercepts, we've turned around 81 persons and have placed 112 into quarantine, and that was up till about 10:30 this morning. What's concerning about that is a number of those persons that were intercepted were either displaying the incorrect pass or no pass at all, and we're making it very clear that they were trying to get into Queensland to meet with family for Christmas purposes. So we can't give the community confidence that we are picking everyone up as it is coming across the border, hence the need to move to a harder border closure. So what people can expect to see commencing immediately is the reinstigation of our hard border closures across all of our road entry points with New South Wales, and progressively they'll be implemented and will be fully functional by 6 a.m. tomorrow. Please, everyone that wants to come into Queensland, please have the correct border declaration pass, and please identify whether you're coming out of the hotspot area. There are significant penalties that go with this. It's a $4,003 fine for falsely declaring, and it will be mandatory quarantine or turned around. So we really need people to cooperate with us here. We are trying to stop the spread of the virus again into our state, and it's disappointing that we've seen the instance where we've tried to do a system where it relies on the integrity and honesty of the community coming in, and some people are not doing the right thing. So therefore we have to go back to that.
Okay, so there we have it. Queensland's hard border with New South Wales is back. Earlier there we heard from the Premier, Anastasia Palaszczuk, updating the situation, and these barricades will be up on the border by this afternoon. And the border measures that we saw earlier this year will be back in place by tomorrow morning.